Making promises and not delivering is exactly the reason that the political class has lost trust. The only way that we can regain it is to tell the unvarnished truth. Net zero by 2050 is impossible. I don't say that with pleasure. I want a better future and a better environment for our children, but we have to get real. Anyone who has done any serious analysis knows it cannot be achieved without a significant drop in our living standards, or worse, by bankrupting us. Responsible leaders don't indulge in fictions which are going to make families poorer or mortgage their children's future. Without the rest of the world doing the same, we are making our country less safe, less secure, and less resilient. Let me give you 3 truths at the heart of net zero. First, the published plans are completely muddled. It is true that the UK has made the greatest progress on carbon emissions in the developed world. Yet we are only responsible for 1% of global emissions. Even if we hit absolute zero, we will not have net zero around the world if other countries are not following us. And they are not. They certainly will not if they see us bankrupting ourselves to get there. Our success at reducing emissions has also come at a significant cost. The highest electricity bills in the developed world. What's extraordinary is that so much of the cost of our energy bills is not directly from the wholesale cost of energy. Huge amounts are being spent on switching around how we distribute electricity, because we effectively build 2 systems now of electricity generation, one based on renewables and one not. One for when the sun shines and the wind blows, and one for when they don't. Instead of dealing with these challenges, Labour play rhetorical games, talking about missions, goals, and mistaking press releases about GB Energy for actual solutions. The real reason no one in their government is talking about a proper overall plan is that they know it would reveal just how catastrophic the actual costs will be for families, for businesses, and for our economy. Those costs include families being forced to replace perfectly functioning cars, boilers, and cookers with more expensive, less reliable versions of the same thing. The costs will mean businesses paying much more than we already are for energy. So our industrial base and manufacturing businesses get weakened even further. And it will mean our economy losing out on exploiting our own natural resources in the North Sea, while being saddled with ever greater debt. That's just the first truth. Second, even where there is a plan, we are behind. Let's look at one easy example. By 2040, the Committee on Climate Change says more than half of UK homes need to rip out their boilers and replace them with a heat pump. There is no way we can do this quickly enough on that timescale. 17 million houses need to be fitted with an expensive heat pump in just 15 years. How many houses have one now? Fewer than 300,000. Because heat pumps run on a lot of expensive electricity, and it turns out many people just don't like them. But let's look at the good statistics. Last year, we saw the highest number of heat pumps ever installed in the UK, 50,000. That's the best we've ever done. So at that rate, it will take 340 years, not 15, to get to the target. And most of the 50,000 were installed with some form of government subsidy, or as I prefer to call it, taxpayers' money. There's a lot less of taxpayers' money now, and that's before government spending gets further constrained by the need to spend more on defence. This is not a criticism of green technology. I support the shift to renewables when they make energy cheaper and more secure. However, they are not a perfect solution and come with their own challenges, which brings me to the third truth. We are massively exposing ourselves to countries who do not share our values. Take solar panels. The good news is that costs have dropped in the last decade. Here's the less good news. 10 years ago, we were heavily dependent on China for all of the key components. Today, we're even more dependent. Look at the top dozen makers of solar panels. They are nearly all Chinese. That's an extraordinary dependency, given what we learned during COVID about over-reliance on these supply chains. What about wind farms? Where do we think that most production is currently? You guessed it, China, which means that they are all produced using Chinese energy. 60% of their supply comes from coal-fired power stations. They are building a new one every other week to keep up with our demand. Look at electric vehicles, all reliant on batteries to work. One country dominates production of the component parts which create them. Those three truths are why I call myself a net zero skeptic. Muddled plans, unrealistic targets and deadlines, over-reliance on China. We have got to start acknowledging what is in plain sight. Net zero makes us dangerously dependent on countries who don't share our values, and it is risking our energy security. It is time to stop pretending everything will be fine. And I'm certainly not debating whether climate change exists. It does. I badly want to leave a much better environmental inheritance for my children and for yours. But it doesn't look like we are going to get remotely close to net zero by 2050, and neither will any autocracy, not that they're trying to anyway. This is what happens when politics turns into fantasy. Maybe some of it will change, but it doesn't look promising. Ed Miliband spends all of his time making big promises, telling people he will cut household bills by £300 while having no idea how. And by the way, they've gone up by almost £300 since Labour came into office. I often say that when you want to help people, you tell them the truth. When you want to help yourself, you tell them what they need to hear. We have to tell the truth. The plans for net zero by 2050 are impossible. We have to do better than this. That's why, as part of our policy renewal, we are going to do something that Labour failed to do in 14 years of opposition. We are going to deal with reality, confront the real problems, answer the real questions, and be ready with a plan. We will cover numerous areas, but today we start on energy and net zero. To do that, our team, led by Shadow Secretary of State Claire Coutinho, will be looking at all aspects of the UK's future energy and net zero policies. Few have spent more time trying to unpack the model thinking at the heart of the net zero debate than Claire. She will be supported by Shadow Secretary of State for Scotland, Andrew Bowie, and Lord Offord. I am tasking her team with finding and working with the people who know the truth and who can come up with achievable solutions, people who can answer from experience, how we can deliver cheap and clean energy without bankrupting businesses, without eye-watering bills for households, without dependencies on hostile or unstable countries. Labour may not be interested in these questions, but we are. We are interested because, as Conservatives, we want to protect our environment. We want to secure our energy and deliver a better world for our children. Someone has to save these noble objectives from the zealots who have hijacked this agenda. The best way to deliver clean energy and a better environment is with the market. Not state diktat, not pretend statistics from vested interests or rent seekers who want to keep this fiction going for as long as possible. Telling the truth on net zero and energy is just the start of actually ensuring we leave an inheritance for the next generation. I said at my party conference speech that we were going to rewire, reprogram, and reboot the way government works so it serves the public again. Today, the Conservative Party is taking the first step in the UK's biggest policy renewal programme in 50 years. Tomorrow, my shadow cabinet will begin to do the same with many of the other problems that we see. Getting people back to work, dealing with a society that is fragmenting, not integrating, fixing healthcare, repairing the mess Labour are making right now in education, improving productivity, controlling immigration and dealing with the lawfare that stops elected officials from making democratic decisions.